Can you strike a balance, or has the game been lost? Hello, this is Edmond Richard. This is my wonderful introduction screen. As you can see, I have Mr. Laser Pointer here, which is now underneath the Latin phrase. Please pardon any mispronunciation. I see it as Alia iacta est, which simply states the die has been cast, which means what is already happening is happening. This is not something we can prevent. The game is already afoot, as Sherlock Holmes would state. Please note I found this wonderful little graphic right here with the skull. Too bad I can't have two laser pointers, but I have two red eyes, but being as I don't, let us move on. Here's a screen with some scary words. Once again, the joys of searching. The speaker, as you're hearing me, is Edmond Richard. I'm part of Group 1 of the University of Cumberland's class MSDF 630-A01. A statement I want you to keep in the back of your mind is from Thomas Jefferson, which states the man who would choose security over freedom deserves neither, which I interpret as those who believe security above all else are losing freedom, and those who believe freedom above all else lose security. There always must be a balance. Let us see if we can achieve one. Okay, here's our problem. Once again, our wonderful graphical montage. I'm sure you've seen these words in our books, and people discussed it, especially on the news, with the talking heads who get upset at each other. So we need to realize, as I stated before, the die has been cast. We are in a world where this is already happening. We cannot say we're now going to start over. That doesn't happen. It is too late. Things are already in play. Such as this right here. The governments across the world have been gathering your personal information. What they're doing with it, how they're compiling it, what they're using it for, something not under public disclosure most of the time. And this is one thing which should always be in the back of your mind. We're trying to secure what, why, and do we really trust our governments? And what happens when our information leaves our own home country and goes somewhere else? What right does that government have to monitor and compile our data? For our youngsters, schools censor information coming inside their four walls because they are supposed to protect the children from seeing obscene or illegal acts. Unfortunately, because of the growth of YouTube and every other social media site, excessive filtering comes down to censorship, so the ACLU has had to step in and say, hey, you need to allow certain information to come through because otherwise you're being extremely segregationist on what is allowed and what is not. The example here is on the discussions of LGBTQ issues, rights, discussions, and whatnot. There is no formal curriculum for that. A lot of schools are trying to develop one where they're trying to be inclusive, but it is still a very difficult battle. This one right here is the fodder for television. The talking heads get mad about this. They deny or confirm the fact that either our side or their side is differing in elections, and that's going to continue forward. Once again, like I said, the die has been cast. These issues are occurring. They're not going to stop occurring, and if people choose to ignore them, we will all suffer the consequences. So, what you're reading online, is it true? Is it propaganda? Is it slanted? Is it missing something? Those are all questions which should be in your mind. Now, the last one I brought up here is our friendly box suppliers, Amazon. In this time of COVID, they provide us many, many luxuries, such as toilet paper, that we can get via using our browsers on our phones or any other device. But they have decided to introduce a device which is to assist in your health. So while doing the standard things as like an Apple Watch or a Samsung Watch, this one also listens to you because it detects stress in your voice and will prompt you to de-escalate yourself. Now, the issue is that this is a watch. It is not a little person inside saying, oh no, the wearer is upset. It has to transmit your voice, your intonations somewhere. Someone has to evaluate and say, okay, this means this. That means you're constantly monitoring yourself by wearing this watch and what information is being gathered and where is it being stored. So, is this you providing information to any number of unknown third parties, or is this something for your health? Again, things to keep in mind. Right here we switch to big data, the 4 V's. If you've taken a big data class, you should know these. If not, it's volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. To quickly break them down, volume means you want to get as much data as possible from, well, anywhere you can get it. Velocity means you want to get data now, not data from yesterday, not data from 2 months ago. You want data now, almost real time. Variety is gathering it from multiple sources. Could it be a health watch? Can it be a cell phone? Can it be your computer usage? Could it be your car? All those data sources want to be pulled together. Veracity, that's one that you're working on. That is pretty much trying to say, is all this information coming in on this one person or a group of people actually true, or is it noise? Those lucky data scientists get to find that out. Unfortunately for us, this means that massive data pools are being created and resold without our knowledge. This happens worldwide. Some people are fine with it, some people don't care, some people don't even know about it. But, once again, when it comes to the field of security, how secure are those third parties keeping your data? If they're reselling it, did you give them permission to resell that? Is this another issue of lax? Yes, that is an old medical case that a woman who did have cancer, they took a biopsy from her, and those cells are still being used to this day, decades later, and it's simply taken those decades before the scientific community actually admitted, yes, we did take these cells from your ancestor. No, we've never told you about it. No, we've never shared any profits. We've learned from it. But hey, at least we gave it a name. Now, sadly for us, and joyfully for us, it's just our data. But then again, what is data to them? Is it truly biometric data just from our devices, or are those devices reporting more? And if so, who's telling you what is reporting and what is your rights to get that back, and how's it being secured? This second one here is one which is near and dear to my heart because I have children. COPPA is one of the many federal regulations to protect children from accessing things they should not. For example, a child under a certain age cannot see adult pornographic material, they cannot enter into contracts, they cannot do this, that, and the other. Now the issue is when a child sees a wonderful little game on his Facebook feed or something else, there's going to be a legal disclaimer up front, which states you must acknowledge the following before playing this game or getting this or that. How many children do not read that, like many adults don't, simply click on install, go through the game, and then realize, oh no, this game is collecting all this information, sending out to gosh knows where, but hey, at least I got this new skin, or I could play this game with my friends. For example, Fortnite. Okay, you guys are playing Fortnite, a group of teenagers are playing it, some underage kids, some adults. What is all the information going to background? Not just the game, but what other data telemetry is going on. The kids do not know. The parents don't know. Actually, very few people know. In this case, the law, which you're supposed to protect, is being circumvented just because of the desire to do something else. Of course, because of the joyful world of social media, Facebook, TikTok, and so on, everyone loves to tell their story about their lunch, their loves, their loss, what this day means to them, etc. I understand the word etc. is not formal speech, but hey, we would be here way too long if I talk about everything. about social media, so let's go forward. The U.S. government, for example, has been caught in the web of seeing free information, and is using it to form a stingray. A stingray traditionally is known as a cell phone interception device or a fake cell tower. It's normally used to, it's like, hey, bad person A is in this building, you park a car across the street from a building. When they use their phone, it's going to look for the strongest signal, in which case that's going to be the device in the car. They can trap and trace everything being said, transmit, or whatnot. That's a traditional stingray. Now, in this case, the stingray is everything you're posting. So a government entity, from law enforcement to gosh knows who, can simply say, oh, look, here's Tommy B. They're a person of interest. We can track all their information from Facebook. We can see the pictures they post. Hey, do they know about the metadata in their picture, so we know where Tommy B has been? We can form a timeline. We can take down alibis, etc. That is pretty scary. That is all part of big data, because all that information is going somewhere, and now the government likes to have its own little stash, and personal companies like it as well, to sell you things such as a new pair of socks when you're looking for socks. I mentioned this phrase, innocent lost, because a lot of people join this ever interconnected world and believe, well, there's always someone out there to protect me, and the reality is no. It has been described the Wild West, except the Wild West was more regulated than the internet. So once your device or devices connect to the internet, start sharing information, there is no assumption of privacy anymore, and most people don't understand that. And that is one of our issues. Because if there's no privacy, then what security is there? You're going to say, well, I'm securing my home network. Well, how secure is your home network? And what good does it matter if a stranger can't look inside your network if they can simply look as you transmit outside of it? So, security gone. This has not been a blind event or a huge buried treasure. We have global data collection, which basically means you have governments and pseudo-governments and people who seek power and wish to overthrow those in power are gathering up information at an alarming rate at which no formal intelligence structure ever could do, because no formal government has ever placed active monitoring into every citizen's home. But with greater connectivity, everyone is sharing everything. Oh boy, how much fun that is. Now some countries, and I'm going to use China here, not to pick on China, but China has the Great Firewall. This is where a government says, hey, we need to stop from other foreign entities from interfering in things such as elections and giving propaganda which may state that our great leader or leaders are wrong or something against our values. So they set up a firewall. Basically means that when you go out there, you cannot go to Google. You will go to the China's version of a Google or search engine type device. You'll type in certain words, and it will only give you certain answers. It will prohibit you from getting free access to information. That is part of their system, is part of their social currency. It is something they avoid in their daily lives when they try to get information in and out, but it is something governments do. Now here at home, I'm using the wonderful graphic of a thumbprint with an American flag, because many people think we're not China, we're not this country, we're not that country, United States, so what are we doing? There was this discussion in 2009 where several people in education, students were asked what they think freedom was, what they believe privacy was. And while it was an active discussion, it sort of went nowhere because no one actually said and created curriculum or tried to educate people. This is what freedom now has become. And that's a problem, because freedom is one of the tenets of privacy, because under freedom you should have the ability to have private thoughts and whatnot. And right now, currently, we do not have devices which can read your mind. But if you keep it inside your head, that's the only place you can find privacy, because once it leaves your mouth, something is listening, something's capturing it, something is interpreting it. Now, security above all, I know it's a wonderful little graphic, love PowerPoint. Users' inexperience and lack of education have created more issues than evildoers. This is something I've personally experienced, as people love to tout one security solution or another. Oh, this one's evil, this one's good. Oh, I don't care, this one's good enough. Because there's no baseline, people do not know what to pick, people do not know who to trust, and people blindly trust and accept. Like I stated, when a child wants to play a game, the thing which comes up first is a EULA, End User License Agreement. If you read those, you'll see that your rights are being taken away from you, but people simply click past them, install the game or program, and continue your lives. Once again, beings who are not experienced in what that language does and says, you're giving away your information. And then when you try to say, I need to secure it, that's rather laughable, because this is not the horse leaving the barn in the old example. This is the horse taking an Uber or a Lyft to the next town over, starting a competing business, purchases that farm, wipes out the people on the farm, takes down that barn, makes a multi-million-dollar, multi-story complex, and is profiting as that horse is burying the owners underneath it in the foundation and simply saying, ha, I won. Well, I definitely left the barn, didn't he? Yes, he did. Okay, Mr. Laser Pointer had to take a short break. Here he is. He's doing a little circle saying, hi, everyone. Sorry for the break. We're now going to be talking about walled gardens. As you can tell, this is part of the Apple Incorporated Company's logo. Hello, part of the apple. Notice there's a nice little bite. Okay, let's talk about things which are biting an apple. People are hungry and people who like apples. Now, apple's been considered the walled garden, which means something like this for most people. Hey, there's a beautiful little garden. Here's grass. We got some bushes. Oh, look, we got a fountain, probably celebrating the union of alpha and beta with a little bit of zeta. Who knows? But we live here. Our data is safe. Everything's beautiful. We have high walls. No one's coming inside. Sadly, that's not true. Just like before, Apple wanted to keep all your information. They wanted to sell it, keep it, whatever they need to do, whatever their goals are. But they felt that their walls were strong. Unfortunately, they don't develop every app. So, for example, TikTok was allowed on the Apple devices, and lo and behold, they discovered that TikTok was doing more than what people were asking for, and their information was flowing past the walls. Oops. Now, of course, before anyone gets into a political discussion over, well, it's just that evil so-and-so, as early as this year, they've found out the developer tools for almost any application do the same thing. They fall under the guise of telemetry. Now you're thinking, okay, if I install application X, which is supposed to do Y, if that application fails, or as I use it, it's only going to share the information within the boundaries of the application. Wrong. These developer tools actually monitor the entire device and transmit information about the entire device. That includes taking screenshots. That means copying mail lists, IMs. There's a huge devious set of things it collects. But once again, people fool themselves into thinking, hey, my walled garden's safe. No, it is not. Even the developer tools are punching holes through that garden and ransacking your valuables. In this case, your data. So much for a wall being a security device. As you cannot tell from my tone, this is a wonderful digital lock. I know some creative artist somewhere, as you notice down here, probably spend a lot of time with this. Most people are thinking, yes, my walled garden Apple device or my open source device on Linux or my Microsoft device or whatever device comes up next is secure. But people never ask the question, as I brought up in the beginning, the real honest question. What are we securing and whom are we securing it from? In other words, your data is valuable to you. It could be valuable to others, but who is going to take that information? And do they really need to take it if we give it away? This is a little twist. This entire Paragraph here is actually part of a paragraph from a very interesting book on propaganda. Most people think of propaganda as dropping leaflets during the war. Maybe you've seen that now increasingly older show MASH, where a propaganda bomb would simply detonate and release leaflets saying, "Give up, the war is over," etc. and so forth. So most people are saying, yeah, I understand what propaganda is. I see it every day during the election season. Elect A instead of B. B is evil. A is good. A is evil, etc. The issue is propaganda comes as a buddy, an add-on, like a barnacle in a ship on all communication. Propaganda is the war for the mind, which means someone wants you to think a certain way, act a certain way, or do a certain thing. All this privacy and security talk never really discusses that, because you do realize that everything you do can be slanted and will be slanted. On social media, it is readily apparent as people get themselves into their own little communities and bubbles, and then they're simply reinforcing their own ideas. There's been many studies on this, and most people do not realize that if you're sharing an idea with like-minded individuals, you're simply reinforcing an idea, which is a form of propaganda, because your values get tied into it, and then before you know it, you're outside of social media, you're into the real world, and you're starting to repeat what others have said. You've simply become a vessel for someone else's propaganda. You can't really secure yourself about that. There's no software to protect you from that, because once again, this is psychological war, and there went privacy and there went security, and now before you know it, you're doing the bidding of someone else unconsciously. Like I said, it is a war. The U.S. government loves to collect information, yet they never put up for vote. Our representatives never say, yes, we're doing this, that, and the other to ensure security, but they don't say what they're doing with it. The U.S. Patriot Act is an example of that. It's been renewed by several presidents. It's been expanded in scope. It is gathering information. If you believe that government agencies do not review their information and use it to craft responses, you're fooling yourself. Private industry does it as well. Consider the whole debate over what color the dress was, as people were looking and Googling and using whatever communication method they had. They were simply creating more data points. Remember Locard's theory. When two or more objects interact, every party to the interaction leaves something behind. So as you saw the dress, it was on a certain site. You created a cookie for it. That cookie has their information from your browser. Then as you went to discuss it with your friends, say on Facebook, you're creating even more links to that. And then you go to a website, here's more links. Meanwhile, every little step along the way, they can read the cookies they have placed, or they can read cookies from others, or they have tracking pictures or pixels which do the similar thing. And in which case your whole discussion about the dress is feeding possibly a TJ Maxx, some other big clothing retailer, to say, oh, this person is really interested in this, or they're not, because that whole dress discussion also reveals the whole other data hoard you have allowed. But I can say, oh, they were looking for dresses. Oh, they were looking for shoes. They're looking for this, that, and the other. In which case you've given the advertisers a ton of information. It has actually been stated that the 9/11 terrorists had more information in the private industry in the ad world. Yes, advertisements. It really makes Mr. Laser Pointer happy. Had more information about them than the federal government did because of this data gathering. Yes, even back then, there's data gathering. Wonderful. So in summary, the world has changed. People are slow to realize the change. The change mainly has been in data gathering. Who has it, who's gathering it, who's reselling it, and who's profiting from it, and who's using it to change your opinion on buying a certain car, shoe, lifestyle, food, what is acceptable, what is not. We have governments, private industry, former allies, new enemies. All of this is dynamic. There isn't a country in the world which is not connected. If they're totally not connected, so in other words, you are that little volleyball floating in the water, and if no connectivity, then you have your own thoughts and no one really knows about you. But as soon as you wash up on land where someone's going to take a picture of you and everything else, ta-da, you've created a data footprint and people are tracking what you like, what you don't like, where you're from, etc. All these groups want that information. Social media is the people themselves feeding this machine, this great machination. I don't like this, I do like this, I don't like this person, I love this person, I'm following this person, etc. Remember, Locard's theory, we're leaving information behind. That location information is not only that we like or dislike something, but then it provides a link to who said that, and then who said that, what other information they have available for them. Once again, we're giving away the entire farm, as you want to say, but we seem not to care much. Oops. This last one right here is from a video series called Cyber War. Extremely interesting, by a Canadian broadcasting company, where they went to what was the former Soviet Union and they spoke to these individuals, which are unfortunately drug addicts, but are hired by the government. In this case, it is Russia, because they are the notorious hackers, to break in to companies and other private entities to steal information. The other great tool was to gather information to create propaganda campaigns against the enemy, which in this case was the United States. You do need to realize, if you watch that episode, you provided them with the money, they would change their tune to whatever it needs to be. They could be attacking a foreign country, they could be attacking a local retailer. To them it doesn't matter. They're bounty hunters. You simply tell them, you do this, I give you so much. That fees our drug habits and other vices, but they do this for you. In Russia, for example, that's done out in the open. Not much is done. Here in the United States, it's frowned upon publicly. It's not supposed to happen. But what did Snowden say? Hey, your own government's doing this and worse. So, where's security again? Security doesn't exist, does it? Neither does privacy. I hope you understand that by now. Thank you.